pleasure seeing this old movie.
Thanks so much for being here. Thank you guys for being here too. We have about 15 minutes for Q&A. If you have a question, just raise your hand. You can shout it out, and then I'm going to repeat it just to make sure that everybody's heard it, and then I'm just going to let you answer them.
Okay.
Okay, there's a question right in the back already.
Could you share a little insight on getting access and establishing trust with the characters, and then how you went about maintaining that over 4 or 5 years?
So yeah, just getting trust with the characters, questions about how you got that access and how you maintained it over the 4 or 5 years.
Well, they were initially, I think what happens with a lot of documentaries, especially when you're dealing with people who are not famous and don't think of themselves as subjects worthy of a documentary, which, I think that was true of Arthur and William and his their families. There's initially a lot of flattery in that, like, wow, me, and I think that kind of gets you going. But I think one of the ways in which we, all three of us, Peter Gilbert, myself, and Fred Marks, were able to kind of bond with the families was because we all had played basketball to varying levels of success and loved the game. And that was a really important, I think, initial bond between us and the guys and even their families. And then it kind of grew. We didn't walk in the door saying, hey, we're going to want to spend the next 4.5 years with you and delve deeply into your lives. We weren't trying to do that initially. And when the idea came that we wanted to follow them over time, I remember having a conversation with both families where I just said, maybe we'll check in like once a month, and for the first 2 years, that's essentially about what happened. But then starting with junior year, when we started to get more money and became increasingly obsessed, then it grew exponentially till by the time senior year rolled around and the aftermath and into college, we spent something like 110 days with them. And so it kind of grew, and it becomes this kind of thing you're doing together, really, I think, as much as us doing something on them. You're kind of in this together. And I think that's a great place to be with subjects if you can get there. Doesn't mean that you're going to let them control the edit or, but you have to navigate that relationship so that there is still that boundary, but there's also something more going on that allows them to feel like this is theirs too, not just ours.
Wow, so this right here.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about casting and Band Boys, and whether you had any other kids who you were filming too, and if you ever foresaw all the ups and downs in their lives that ended up in that. We
put out a national casting call, and I think we saw about 350 kids. No, we didn't. There was one kid in particular that we were interested in prior to Arthur and William that also Big Earl knew. This was a kid who came from a totally basketball crazed family. The oldest brother, Byron Urban, was actually playing in the pros at that time. And this was the youngest kid, and this was a kid that Sports Illustrated magazine had written up to be the top 8th grader in the nation, which is preposterous, but they had done that. And so we were interested in him. We met him, but then his dad, who was very active in the basketball world, MacArthur Urban, decided he did not want to have that kind of pressure put on his kid of a film being made, which was kind of funny given that he allowed Sports Illustrated to name him the top 8th grader in the nation. But that kid would have been very interesting to follow. It never worked out for him. He never lived up to the promise. He changed high schools several times. It would have been an interesting story. That was really the only other person. Then we kind of tripped across Arthur with Big Earl, and then when we got out to St. Joe's, like you see in the movie, and Pingatore says, I've got this other kid who could be really great. We were like, well, who's he? And William was there that day. He had a twisted ankle, so he wasn't participating, and met him in the stands. And originally we decided, well, we had no money, so we were going to follow the both of them with the idea that maybe one of them would end up being the story. Not thinking like, how would you break it to the other one that, oh, we're no longer interested in your story. But as it turned out, of course, we remained very interested in both stories.
So many questions right there.
Was there ever a moment when either family asked you to stop filming?
You mean like a...
Decided they didn't want to be involved in the film anymore?
No. I've been pretty fortunate over the years, knock wood somewhere. I've never encountered a situation yet where where someone has said, I don't want to participate in the film anymore. And that doesn't mean that there aren't certain things you can't film, or that, you know, or they don't, you know. And in the case of Hoop Dreams, there was one thing we filmed, which we can talk about now because the family's open about it now, but at the time they weren't, so we didn't talk about it, is that when we showed the film to the AG family before it was completed, which we do as at Cartemquin, where I have a long affiliation going back to Hoop Dreams, and we have Justine Nagan, who is the executive director of Cartemquin here today, leading the charge into the 21st century. Right, Justine? Anyway, we have this policy. Really, it's a thing that we do there, where we show the subject's film before it's done, to let them talk to us about it, weigh in, tell us what they like, dislike, argue, whatever it is. So when we showed the AGs, there was a part of the film that we were going to have in there where the AG, Sheila, did divorce Bo when things got really bad, and she just wanted to be done with him, and she divorced him. But then they decided to get remarried, and this all happened during the 4 years that we filmed. And they asked us, did that need to be in the movie? That they wanted that not to be in the movie. And we could have said no, but we decided that that was a reasonable request given all that they had shared. And so we took that out of the movie. You see that they were estranged, that they got back together, but you didn't find out that they actually got divorced. But I'll never forget that when Sheila called me up one day, when they had decided, she called me up one day and she goes, "Bo and I got remarried." And I was like, "What?" You know, because we wanted to be there to film that. So that's where I learned the valuable lesson that you can't count on your subjects to ever tell you anything. You have to always be asking.